And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Michael Cashman is the chair of the UK Labour Party's National Executive Committee and has been a Labour member of the European Parliament for the West Midlands since 1999. Previously co-founder and chair of Stonewall, he campaigned to repeal Section 28 and helped bring equality for lesbian, gay and bisexual people to the forefront of British politics. His combat continues as he now works on development and civil liberties issues and co-presides the European Parliament's intergroup on LGBT rights. Please join me in welcoming Michael Cashman.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. And can I say I've been sat at the back, and this morning has been absolutely inspiring to Out and Equal and to everyone who's spoken so far. From the bottom of my heart, a huge and a big thank you. For me, the really difficult thing is to know what to talk about. But perhaps I want to reflect really that what would have happened if you arrived here 24 years ago in the United Kingdom. You would have seen a government that was introducing a piece of anti-gay legislation that forbid the so-called promotion of homosexuality. And yet I remember growing up as a 10, 11-year-old wishing that somebody would promote homosexuality. That knowing that I was different and knowing that I wanted to be myself, yet living in London in a working class district, my father a dock worker, my mother a cleaner, I knew instinctively that my survival had to be wrapped within silence. Silence about who I am and who I wanted to love. And so then when I was starring in BBC TV show EastEnders. I'm sorry, it wasn't absolutely fabulous. And the government then brought in this anti-gay legislation. I thought, why? And it was so clear. It was because the political environment wanted it. You know, unless we remember our history, we are destined to repeat it. AIDS and HIV was portrayed in this country and many others as a gay plague. The Chief Constable of Greater Manchester in this great United Kingdom said that gay men were swirling around in a cesspit of their own making. And so gradually an environment through the media and through depiction and misrepresentation creates a political opportunity to scapegoat and target a peaceable, loving minority. And when that Section 28 came forward, what it incredibly did was it said to the rest of the community, if you are different, be careful. Be very, very careful. And so when we campaigned to repeal, and we failed, when we campaigned to repeal Section 28 of the Local Government Bill, we were there as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, but with our heterosexual brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, friends. And it was only collectively that we showed what would happen when you attack a minority. And the achievements since 1988 in this country, when we founded Stonewall, when I was accused by others of saying, you're a self-serving elite. My response was, you're absolutely right. I'm representing the kind of world that I want to live in. I'm representing the kind of values and principles that I believe in. And if others want to follow me, brilliantly. But if they don't, I'm still going to go there. And what we've achieved through a change of government in 1997 was full legal equality. Social justice catches up. But we achieved it. We didn't achieve it only by demonstrating, important though that is. We achieved it by winning the arguments for change, winning the arguments for progress. Because I do believe that the world does only spin forward, but occasionally, and very, very occasionally, repressive hands try to slow it down and pull it back. We heard reference to what's happening in Uganda. David Kato in Uganda, a man who spoke out, who represented the better world that he believed in, and because he spoke out, his life was taken. And there are forces that misuse religion, misuse belief to hold back others. And so we've achieved a great deal in this country. But I'm not interested about one country or one part of the world. Because so long as what happens to another is wrong, so that wrong happens to me. I always remember when I was elected as the chair of the National Executive Committee of the British Labour Party, and I puffed out my rather small chest rather proudly and said, I'm the first gay man to be elected chair of the National Executive Committee. And somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, no, you're the first openly gay man. And the reason I mention that is because unless we come out, unless we say who we are, then we will never achieve our own unique potential. As Vlad said earlier, and I love her, as Vlad said earlier, she wanted to thank her parents. Well, I too want to thank my parents, because perhaps if they hadn't had that crazy drunken night out, I might not be here now. But I want to thank them particularly because when politicians and some religious leaders and others say that they want to end the existence of LGBT people, I want to remind them that we are the sons and daughters of ordinary men and women, made extraordinary by their preoccupation with our sex lives. And there is so much more to us, important though it is, than our sex lives. And my message to them is always this. If they really, really want to stop LGBT people coming into this amazing world of ours, then they should tell heterosexuals to stop procreating. Because so long as a man and a woman procreate, so we will exist. We are of the family. And this brings me, I think, to something that I'll conclude on. That family of the boy who could be hung by his neck in Iran, purely because he's different. David Kato and Daniel in Uganda, lives threatened and taken because they're perceived as different. And that is why it's so important what you do. Because as activists and politicians, we can never win this argument alone. The sense that business makes for the concept of equality, the economic sense, the investment in human potential, the investment in countries is something that I use in Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific to win arguments with governments and politicians as to why they need to change their laws, change their approaches. Because only together can we achieve equality, but more importantly, can we maintain it? Because human rights and civil liberties do not sit in protective steel and concrete. Interestingly, and very interestingly, we actually place them and create them on a bed of sand. And so if you gently erode the bed of sand, then eventually the whole edifice of human rights and civil liberties collapses. And so only together, out and equal, can we maintain what we have and can we progress to what we want to achieve. And so therefore, the concept of the other, for me, is the most important thing. The defense of the other. The defense of religion or belief that by its very nature may indeed want to challenge my rights. But the defense of the other means that I can challenge that religion or belief which, if imposed on me, would reduce my rights in comparison to the other and therefore is unacceptable. And that leap of faith, the ability to imagine the wrong that is being done to that person, what if it were me? What if it were my brother, my sister, my uncle, my aunt? What if that were me? And if I wouldn't want it to happen to me, how on earth can I let it happen to another? And in the European Parliament at the moment, before I come to my concluding remark, we need your help. Multinational businesses across Europe, as well as across the world. Currently, there is a piece of anti-discrimination legislation sat within what we call the Council of Ministers, the 27 governments that come together. It prohibits discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation, religion, belief, age, disability. But those governments do not want to deal with it. They say now is not the time. I want your voices to join with us in the European Parliament to make the case that now particularly is the time. In Europe, we are running parallel to what happened in the 1930s in Europe, where we saw people in an economic downturn and social unrest, targeted and scapegoated because they were different. Only recently, the Roma were expelled from parts of France and Italy. The reasoning being that they were a threat to the internal security of that country. The same community were targeted and the same reason was given in 1930s in Europe. The rising racism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, homophobia, and transphobia is indeed a deep cause for concern. So only together, can we be a force to turn back the challenges that are coming at us. So let me finish on this. Discrimination isn't new. The forces of evil never go away. They change their language. They change their appearance. 400 years ago, William Shakespeare wrote of something that was happening in this city, a play he co-wrote called Thomas More. And Sir Thomas More is called to the City of London, to the Tower, because the strangers have made their way from Calais to Dover to London. The citizens of London are rebelling because the strangers are in their midst. And Sir Thomas More comes out onto the Tower and he says, "You bid that they be removed. The stranger, with their children upon their back, their families at their side, their belongings at their feet. You bid that they be removed. Imagine you are the stranger, with your children upon your back, your family at your side, your belongings at your feet. Imagine you are the stranger and bid that they be removed, and show your Montanish inhumanity. History. History. They've attempted it before. We've seen the tragedy of the attempts to annihilate and to discriminate. Only together, out and equal, will we remain equal. Thank you.